Hey everybody, I'm still here in Brooklyn, New York because I have been attending the FIA Formula E Season 8 Round 11 race, or as they like to call it in these parts, the NYCE Prix. Now, Round 11 took place today. It was a really super exciting race. If you haven't seen the video where the press conference was shared, do check that out in the links below. But before the race took place today, Michael and I got up very, very early. We went over to a different hotel where ABB was hosting a breakfast roundtable where we got to meet some of the executives at ABB and talk about a whole slew of different things. Now, if you don't know who ABB is, it is a massive multinational company that specializes in everything electrical, and I really do mean everything. They build motors for industrial applications. They build EVSE, or electric vehicle charging stations, ranging from level 2 charging stations all the way up to the super fast 350 kilowatt rapid charging stations, all the way up beyond that to specialized charging stations for marine applications, specialized charging applications for buses and trucks. And they also work on the power components that are used in grid electrical systems. So everything from high voltage power cable transfer solutions through to electrical solutions for large buildings, things that you would normally put in the machine room. So it was a very interesting roundtable discussion. There is a separate interview coming very soon with the president of ABB's e-mobility division. But for now, let's go over to that breakfast roundtable discussion, which we are reproducing here for you with permission from ABB. But before I do, just a reminder to hit the subscribe button and the bell for this channel so that you do not miss out on a single video from us. And we do produce a lot of videos. And if you would like to be one of the more than 1,400 people who supports this channel every month through Patreon, stick around until the end and I'll tell you how. But without further ado, let's go back in time to this morning and that very interesting panel.
All right, thank you all for joining us. There might be a couple more reporters coming in as we go. But for those of you that traveled a ways to be here, we really appreciate that. Thank you, and I hope all your travels are safe. I think today's an exciting day. And for those of you that have never seen an ABB Formula E race, you're in for a really big treat. And we have a lot of information to provide you, as deep as you want to go into some of the technology. We can help you get there. We have a lot of executives from around the world today here to answer your questions. We're going to do a little bit of a moderated talk and then give each of you opportunities for one-on-ones with the different business executives. One thing I'd like to say is today we are releasing a press release. We're partnering with the Department of Energy in their Better Climate Challenge. ABB is pledging in the United States to reduce our greenhouse gases by 80% in 10 years. And it's really important not only for our own operations, for our customers, and for the environment itself. You'll have thumb drives in your media bag, and this information will be within the thumb drive as well. So what I'd like to do now is introduce our Chief Sustainability Officer and Chief Communications Officer, Theodore Swedgemark. He's based in Zurich, Switzerland, and he joins us today to help us moderate this panel. Theo?
Thank you so much, Chris, and warm good morning to all of you. It's stuck in European time zone, so it's in the middle of the day. So I feel fresh enough, so I hope to be able to do this in a somewhat elegant manner. It's good to see all of you, and I don't know if all of you have had the chance or none of you before to see an ABB Formula E race. It's great to be back here in New York and in Brooklyn in particular. For me, it's really one of the best races, part of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. And as Chris mentioned, I have with me here today a very nice selection of colleagues from all over the world, but 3 from the US, if I'm not mistaken. We start with Frank Milon. He is division president, one of our 21 global divisions, the way we operate in ABB, for our e-mobility business, which is the world leader in electrical vehicle charging infrastructure. I have with me also here Ed Schwartz, who is Vice President of Marine Systems based here in the US. And I'm sure he will tell you some exciting things about what he has done so far, including the Niagara Falls, which we were chatting about here before. I have Jesse Hansen, who is also president of our NEMA motor division. So again, not only responsible in the US, but globally for our NEMA motor business. And Mike Plaster, who is executive vice president and responsible for our electrification business here in the US. So I don't know how well you know ABB or not. I mentioned the word divisions. We operate globally about 100,000, 105,000 people in more than 100 countries since more than 130 years. US is our biggest market. We have roughly 20,000 people in the US with a very wide footprint across the whole country, and we have invested significantly here since 2010. Chris mentioned today I overlook sustainability and communications. I have been with the company for quite a long time, and I was long back in the M&A department, so I had the pleasure of participating in doing some of the large investments that we have done here in the past as well. But under those core business areas, we have the 21 divisions. It's quite unusual that you will have two of those global division presidents also in a room together like that, so it's very nice to see to have them here. But we are here talking about ABB Formula E and sustainability. Chris, you mentioned that we had signed up for the Better Climate Pledge. We are very proud to do this. We have taken really, really big steps in ABB over the last couple of years to put a sustainability strategy and framework in place through which we really believe that we can drive positive impact globally across several different dimensions. When we talk about greenhouse gas reductions, this focuses on one of those four pillars, which is what we like to call enabling a low-carbon society, where we have not only committed to becoming carbon neutral in our own operations over the next 10 years, and we are very far along the way. Already in 2 years, we have reduced our own Scope 1 and 2 emissions by more than 40%, but also to help our customers and suppliers reduce their emissions. And I like to always mention the factoid that ABB becoming carbon neutral is fantastic, but we have committed ourselves to help our customers reduce their emissions by at least 100 megatons in the year 2030. And this is 150 times bigger than a company of a global nature like us ourselves becoming carbon neutral. So, and equally, we have very ambitious targets on the supply side chain. So, yeah. Just as an introduction, and of course you mentioned Department of Justice, we're Department of Energy, sorry, and we are very proud to partner with them on this and to help drive really these actions also here in the US, where we want to at least reduce our own Scope 1 and 2 emissions by 80% over the next 10 years. And we have all the technology, we believe, to not only help us do this, but help our customers do the same. So of course we want to be part of the group of people and companies who walk the talk and show that this is possible. And I think my colleagues here will give you some very interesting angles to how we make that happen on a daily practical basis already now. It's not a dream, it's not the future kind of vision, it's something that we do as a company every single day. And of course, ABB Formula E is a kind of example of that. For us, it is our global flagship platform for engaging with both customers, society in general, but also our own employees and future potential employees and talent to tell our story in and about how we help drive towards a more sustainable future. And of course, it's about electric cars, and electric cars needs to be charged. So maybe I tee that up by we're asking Frank as a first question. Tell us a little bit more about electric charging vehicle infrastructure and maybe specifically for the US.
Thank you, Sian, for teeing it up. I'm not a golfer, but probably that age will come. So for e-mobility charging, that's a business ABB is in since more than a decade now. And so we claim to be the global market leader in EV charging, and we do that based on all we see in terms of public figures available and in terms of growth we're having. And the business itself is a variety of chargers which you need if you want to make electric mobility happen. So we start chargers from level 2 chargers in residential to chargers in which you use in neighborhoods, in shopping areas, chargers which you have on a highway where you want to have a fast charge, high power chargers, or chargers for transit, e-bus, and also for long-haul trucks. And so this is the whole range. If it goes beyond that, then my colleagues will talk later. But this is the range where we're doing charging infrastructure, more than since a decade. And now looking particularly into the US market, what we see, of course, is we have a very good and solid position here in the United States as well, since many, many years. But now with the bipartisan infrastructure law, looking at a potential investment of 15 billion over the next 5 years, that is something which will drive the industry here in the US way beyond of where it is today. I mean, we see today still, we see US growing nicely, but it's lagging a bit behind other markets, so there is a huge potential to catch up. We see that, and of course we want to be part of it, and we see that opportunity. When we look at what we did in this year, or what we're going to do till the year finished, we actually create 125 jobs additionally in that business of charging. And to give you 2 examples where we do that, one is when you install the chargers, it's not just for us to sell the equipment, it's to service it, to maintain it, because at the end of the day, it's damn important that everything is operational, reliable. It's critical infrastructure when you're on the road, you have to rely on. And so service is very important, and service is not only done by us. I mean, it's not that we do all the service by ourselves, but we do that with service partners. So, but these partners need to be trained on the equipment and so on and so forth. So we're setting up a training center in Sugar Land, Texas, and that is one part of the investment. The other is we see, of course, we are in development. We have about right now more than 1,200 employees in that business globally. About 350 are working in R&D, and that is in different locations. So also in the United States, and we're extending that and build out a facility now in Southern California, where we focus on product development, specifically also for the market. I mean, this is mainly has to do with the connectivity of the chargers, with the payment solutions, with the integration of into different backends, and all of that is, of course, also a bit market specific, and we're going to do that from Southern California. When you look at the product range, probably a product we introduced a while ago is the high power charger. So we did that already in 2018, so that almost seems like last century. So 350 kilowatt liquid cooled, but it's still state of the art today. What we do now more and more is these chargers are all so-called split systems. So you have a power conversion somewhere, and you have dispensers. We're going more into so-called all-in-one solutions now, where you have one box where you have power conversion and the dispensing in, and split the power out of that, like with 2 charging guns or up to 4 charging guns. So this is what we do there. We're currently in the rollout with a couple of customers here in the US with our 184 kilowatt charger, so that has 180 kilowatt, but can serve 2 cars. So you can have 1 car taking 180, or you have 2 cars taking 90 each. So that is quite effective when it comes to installation, reduction of installation cost, maintenance, and so on. And of course, that goes up. So our 360, then, as the name suggests, can do the same, but not 180, but it's 360. So that's what we do there. On the commercial side, so for bus and truck, let me also mention this. We're in e-bus. I mean, we're since many years in e-bus with a lot of good customers here in the States. So more than 43 customers we're having. So we do transit. One of the last examples was in St. Louis, Missouri, where we're powering up the metro there. We're about 4.3 megawatt of charging power, which we just installed recently, by America compliant, just to mention that on the site, the product. But on the truck side, I think this is an interesting discussion going forward, how much will trucks be able to charge electric, so this discussion, electric, hydrogen, whatever, so of course, you can imagine we believe in electric, and we support that, and we support that with a new standard, which the whole industry is developing right now, the megawatt charging solution, the MCS, and so it's also technology. So just to give you, but I think I used up my time.
It's very interesting topic. It's really interesting what Frank and his team globally are doing here. But Ed, we talked a lot about charging now here on the road. So and I maybe mentioned something about Niagara Falls in the beginning. So and Frank clearly said at a certain point in time you step in when you talk to us about big charging solutions. So maybe if you
Very
can
big,
share
yeah,
some.
big system. So, very proud to be able to kind of represent the marine industry at this forum, at this event. So the marine industry, very near and dear to my heart. I've spent my entire career in the maritime industry, and I can see the transition. We talk about this electrification transition. I can see it personally myself. When I started in the industry, I was working mostly on steamships burning heavy oil. Like that was really kind of the standard vessel that was out there in the market still in the United States. And now in my career, working on this transition between all battery vessels, hydrogen, ammonia, it's really kind of this great time, and we're getting the benefits of other industries into the maritime industry. So the maritime industry always benefits from where the rest of the markets go. So we're seeing this electrification transition happening on road, like Frank was talking about, and then we're also benefiting downstream from some of these products and integrating these products into marine applications. So it's exciting times. We see the electric system kind of being the backbone of this transition to zero emission for the maritime industry, whether it be through batteries. We talk about Bay of the Mist. Great example of a battery operated vessel up in Niagara. We had an owner who was dedicated to provide a fully zero emission system. So the power generation is green and renewable with a hydro dam, and then he's using batteries, he's charging the batteries on board. So it's really kind of wake, we always say it's like a well to wake green solution. That's not always an option, but it's really kind of highlights what's possible. Is really what we're doing at Bay of the Mist. So it's showing that there's this transition. Like I said, we're benefiting from electrification coming. I know we're going to talk about some of the utilities, because now in the marine we're shifting from being strictly autonomous in our power creation and consumption to now relying on utilities to survive, to supply power. So that's part of what the maritime industry is doing, is kind of connecting more to the ports side of the business and being less independent in order to be more sustainable is part of this transition. Frank talked about the infrastructure bill. The infrastructure bill is a great resource right now for the maritime industry. There's hundreds of millions of dollars available to build, rebuild a lot of the U.S. maritime fleet and build it in a more sustainable way. So this is kind of really helping to offset a lot of the FTA funding is helping to offset these capital expenses to building more sustainable vessels. So we're very excited about that. Lastly, I'd like to kind of hit, and I think I'm going to stay on time, which I think will be a first. I think I'm usually quite verbose when given a platform to talk about the maritime industry. But early adopters, that's kind of the phase that we're in the industry, is we have these very decisive, very brave early adopters of technology. Certain segments are adopting early, certain owners are adopting early the technology, and for me personally, and from the ABB standpoint, is we really want to reward these early adopters. They have to be successful, and we as an organization have to stand by them, make sure, be committed to the success of this early adoption of technology. It's very, very important for us as an industry. It's very important for us as a company that these first cases are really, really successful and become highlighted within the industry and show the potential. And they receive the benefits of doing this, because as they're doing this, they're testing the technology, they're getting through the regulatory requirements. In the maritime industry, we adhere to special regulatory requirements that new technology has to go through. So they're helping pave this path. So it's really important for us to highlight projects like Bay of the Mist. I can talk about. There's a Crowley Marine is doing an all-battery tug for San Diego, which is really a great project that will be delivering next year. This contract was just signed for Casco Bay Lines up in Portland, Maine, is going to be doing a zero-emission battery ferry that they're just starting construction in Rhode Island. So you got these really first electrification projects in North America, very exciting. All different types of technology being utilized. And we're just proud at ABB to kind of be able to help put these systems together and provide these solutions.
Thank you so much, Ed.
I don't know if I hit my 5 minutes or not. And I can talk more later if anybody wants to know more.
So again, this road on the water, these are very, e-mobility overall is of course a very important enabler of a more sustainable future, but there are also other ones which can be even more impactful, and we like to talk in ABB about energy efficiency, which is something the International Energy Agency likes to refer to as the world's first fuel. So nothing better for creating a more sustainable future than not using energy. Jesse, this is something that you and your colleagues globally are very, very active in, and it's actually one of the areas going back to my 100 megaton target in the beginning, where we as a company can have one of the biggest impacts globally in industry, in buildings. There are a lot of motors and drives, etc. in buildings. So why don't you share a little bit from your perspective how energy efficiency is important?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Theo. So when you look at it, 45% of the world's electricity is consumed by electric motors. Imagine the difference that we can make if we can provide more energy efficiency solutions there. And you think, where are those motors being used at? They're on top of these roofs. They're in industrial buildings. They're going to be inside of hospitals, data centers. You find them in steel mills. You find them in food and beverage that brings us food every single day. They're everywhere. There's more than 300 million motors installed out there around the world today. So when we think about how much energy they're consuming, the difference that we can really make, this is what we're focused on as a business. And there's two ways that we're doing that. One is if you put an electronic drive on that motor, so then all of a sudden you can save energy efficiency. You can also swap that motor out and use a more energy efficiency solution. So with a later generation electric motor that has higher efficiency. And that also helps reduce the overall energy you're going to consume. So what most people don't realize is that 95% of the cost of an electric motor is consumed by the electricity over its life of that motor. The motor lasts 20 plus years. So that upfront cost of the electric motor is very minimal compared to the overall total cost of ownership that we have. So investing in the right technology is the message that we're trying to get out there to make sure that our customers understand they have options and they have better ways to save energy to help with overall climate and reduce greenhouse emissions. So when you look at a recent study that we did within ABB, 92% of our customers in the United States are investing in energy efficiency. So we want to be a part of that to help them understand what difference they can make. We want to help them reduce their overall carbon footprint. So one example may be a 50 horsepower electric motor. By swapping that out, you can save 24 metric tons. And that's moving from a standard efficiency motor to one of our ultra premium efficient motors that we have available today. 24 metric tons can be saved. So when you think about what this does, we have proven technologies today available, ready to help our customers between drives and electric motors to truly make a difference. We talked about DOE and how we're being part of that climate change. There's a reason for that, because we have a passion and we feel it's our duty to be a part of this solution. For me, what I always say is the most sustainable solution is to never use the energy in the first place. And that's the opportunity that we have. There's no reason to wait because we have the products today to make that difference. And we are passionate about it because we see the opportunity and it's our ambition to do that.
Super. Thanks, Jesse. That's a typical area which sometimes is not being focused on enough. So if anything, also want to leave with you, energy efficiency is really core to the future for all of us. But Mike, I think a lot of these things that we talked about here so far will require also infrastructure changes. And really that we all have to commit to drive this together, and we need, in order to electrify road transport, sea transport, or electrified processes in industry with efficiency, etc. We need to invest also in the infrastructure. So maybe you, having probably the best view here among us all, what's happening in the US in terms of infrastructure investment, if you can share a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to my colleagues, you can imagine that there is a grid to charger or grid to smart building investment that has to be made because the consumption will be higher. It'll be sustainable electrical infrastructure investments. And at ABB, I'm pleased to say, since 2010, we've invested $14 billion in the U.S. And I'll talk about some of those investments: production, manufacturing, logistics, R&D, and then just new product introduction. So talking about the digitization of the electrical grid and infrastructure. So some of these investments I highlighted: North Carolina, in Mebane, North Carolina, we doubled the size of that factory, 400,000 square feet for low voltage and medium voltage switchgear. In Senatobia, Mississippi, we make our smart breaker technology there, automatic transfer switches. Again, doubled the size, 400,000 square foot facility, hundreds of jobs. And then in Selmer, Tennessee, we make our busway product. Again, an expansion in that plant. And that busway product really moves the energy around production facilities and data centers. When we think about the infrastructure bill, and Frank mentioned it, on the grid, so grid modernization and reliability, there's $65 billion set aside. So the industry has to have capacity, and we've got to be able to provide what I would say the sustainable products for the future, because the capacity in the industry is key, and thankfully ABB has invested in that capacity. We're a little bit ahead of the game because of our acquisition of GE Industrial Solutions. So we were already investing in those plants in the U.S. So that production output is coming online as we speak. When we think about logistics, you can imagine the supply chain disruption is out there. We've all heard about it. We have invested in our distribution centers. So we had distribution centers in the middle part of the country in Mahalia, Mississippi, and Mount Juliet, Tennessee. So automation and expansion there. But we also have a new distribution center in Phoenix to serve our West Coast customers. And then soon to come online in Pennsylvania will be a distribution center for this Northeast corridor. Why is that important? More products, faster response, and less transportation time for our customers. And then when you think about the technology, and that's really the key, we're investing in R&D centers, and specifically, say, up the road in Connecticut, Bloomfield, Connecticut, we have an R&D center for smart buildings and smart power businesses. And what does that bring us when we think of the electrical energy distribution in a building like this? It's really about the digitization of those products. So where we used to have electromechanical devices, they're still electromechanical, but they're intelligent. And what our customers can do in almost any segment is they can remotely monitor and control their distribution energy management. An example I give you is on the utility side, they're digitizing their substations. So now they can see anywhere in the world what a substation is doing. And if there is an issue, they can deploy the right resource with the right equipment to take care of that substation. So all of that's happening right now. It's certainly an exciting time in our industry because demand is high, and a lot of these infrastructure dollars haven't even been deployed yet. So we look forward to a very dynamic future in the electrification of the U.S.
Super. Thank you so much, Mike. That brings us to the end of kind of the pre-agreed, the pre-scripted part of the things, and now we're open for questions. I don't know whether Chris, you want to moderate. Should I moderate questions?
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and ask a question, but we'll break off into one-on-ones too, so you'll also have that.
Oh, right. I mean, this is a general question actually for everybody. We talked about marine, talked about electric vehicles, motors, and power distribution. But obviously, the electric airplane industry is coming slowly. We've started to see planes take off, test aircraft. What is that something that ABB presumably is looking to develop a new arm for, or a new sector in, or is that going to come under Frank's purview or someone else's?
Let me probably start on that. I don't think we do any motors or so for planes. So when we look at it, the planes for short range, they become electric, and then the way to charge them is not much different than how you charge a truck. Yeah? So you need high power in a high power density, and we're actually in a collaboration with Lilium. It's a Munich-based company. Yeah, exactly, for Utah. And so that is working quite nicely from our side. I think the big challenge this industry has is the power density on the battery side. So, but that is outside of our scope. But they are confident that they will have something off the ground somewhere by 2024.
Great, thanks. So you mentioned charging infrastructure. Earlier you said something about a new standard for charging like trucks, heavy duty vehicles. It was MC something. What is that?
MCS, yeah, it's the so-called megawatt charging solution, MCS. So that's the abbreviation, megawatt charging solution. That's a new standard which is required because you have the current standard. It's kind of up to 350 more or less kilowatt. It's more defined by the amps actually and the voltage range. So you can also go 400 or roughly, but there's limits, right? So if you wanna charge a truck with the 400 kilowatt or whatever, there is simply, I mean, you take too long. So you want to increase the power. But in order to increase that, your electrical requirements become different. So you need to have different set of tolerances for leakage and grippage voltages, and so the type of connector needs to be different from the dimensioning point of view, and all of this. So this is why we need a new standard. The protocol, which is also part of the standard, so the spoken language, so to say, is also slightly refined, but that's quite similar to the current one. And the organization doing that is the so-called CHARIN organization.
Sorry, what?
CHARIN, that's the industry association which is guiding that. And of course, as ABB, we're part of that, but so are many other players in the industry because it's an open standard.
My question is a little more general and almost political in nature, but you guys mentioned the infrastructure bill, and there's a lot of momentum going on, obviously. But I was just curious in the context of like the Supreme Court decision on the Clean Power Plan, which, you know, the Clean Power Plan wasn't enacted, but it puts a kind of a limiting effect maybe on the federal government's power to do certain things, you know, to make these things happen. And I was thinking about Senator Manchin's comments the other day, and I was just curious if you see if any of those kind of, and let's say we have a change of administration in 2 years, do those kind of governmental regulatory headwinds really impact where you're going, or do you feel like the momentum is such that everybody's headed that way, because that's eventually where the money's going and where the benefits going to be?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I mean, of course, we are in an industry which is young, which is growing. So any kind of support on the governmental side helps to accelerate that. If you look at it from a broader picture, I mean, why are we in that? Why are we doing that? And why is that industry growing? It's because for the good to reduce carbon footprint. So I think we're all doing the right thing. Now, some policymakers understand that very well and support it. Others just don't. And okay, but that's not for me to comment, right? But if you look at it, that's the one thing. The policy and politics. The other is simply the equation of the cost of ownership. And when you look at it going, and also the fun to drive, by the way. So for anyone driving electric, you don't want to go back. You don't want to go back to pollute, to noise. You just don't want to. And also from a cost point of view, we will see kind of break even between ICE cars, so internal combustion engine cars, and electric vehicles. We thought it will come probably this year or next, but now the battery prices went up, so it probably takes 1 or 2 years longer because of the supply chain shortages we see there. But anyway, so if that happens 2024, 2025, so what will happen? right? It will happen. And then your choice will no longer be, okay, what engine size and displacement do you want to have, but probably what battery size do you want to have. And then it becomes a normal business, because of course you need to charge. And so in the charging operators, they do that for a living, they do that as a business. Yeah? So with or without subsidy. It's just a question of how fast do you get there, how coordinated are you doing that, and do you want to stay in front in the United States, or do you want to lag behind? You know? So, and the decision taken now is to get in front, which is good. So that's my take.
One
more group. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna add that none of those dollars have been deployed.
Yeah.
And yet you see the momentum in the market.
Right.
I mean, it is happening right now. I think the latest on new EV vehicles is 6% in the US, right? And it has increased from 2.5% a year or 18 months ago. So with that, you have to have the infrastructure, and you've got to have the grid to support it, and we're seeing it.
Because you see the automakers all committing.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to see them going back on that.
No, and it's
Technology is
choices.
to say both either, so they will have to make a choice and go one direction.
Yeah.
It's no way back.
Okay. Maybe last group question before we break into one-on-ones.
I mean, going off of what you said, and we're going to see a switch over to full electrification for a majority of the U.S. How do you see infrastructure increasing, let's say working with like Electrify America and other companies that have or house ABB products? How will we see an increase? Because currently in Europe, it's a little different with Ionity. You see chargers right next to the highway. It's very easy, not blocked. And now here we still see wait times with either Tesla or EA stations that they're just a giant wait time. How are you guys going to increase?
Wait time basically is just a reflection of the need of the demand.
Right.
And so we definitely see that, and all of them, I mean, they are deploying massively. Yeah? So, but it's not just along the highway. I mean, it's also within the city perimeters. Yeah? So, and who has a own grid connection?
Right, but I mean, it's different for Europe market than here, because here more people charge at home than they do in Europe, which makes it easier for us here. And that's why we need more highway chargers, I would say, because our level 2s are plentiful. But would you not see an increase back to ICE vehicles once they're waiting 30 minutes when they can just go to the gas station and fill up in 2 minutes?
I definitely do not see that, because the OEMs will switch over more and more to battery electric. So you will have a point where it's just not rational anymore to buy an ICE vehicle. I mean, probably when you live at a farm, fine. Yeah. But when you have a normal commute and you live in the city, etc., then of course you definitely want to have a battery electric vehicle.
Right.
You don't switch back, and the cost of an ICE vehicle at one point in time will simply also be higher. Yeah? So why would you do that? It just creates more pressure and more need to install the infrastructure. And I fully agree with you. We're not there yet. I mean, it's of course embarrassing if you have to wait. Yeah, but that increases the pressure, yeah? And the whole supply chain will follow.
That is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks again to ABB for letting us reproduce this roundtable on the channel. And thanks to them for actually helping us get here, because ABB provided airfare, lodging and hospitality to enable us to bring you this coverage. If you like the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and don't forget to share it with your friends, or leave your thoughts below or in our free to join Discord chat room. It is a fantastic Discord chat room, and there is a link in the video description. And if you really like this video, why not leave us a super thanks? It is pretty easy to do so, and everything you do send goes towards helping us continue to make great content. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel and our other channel, Transport Evolved Take 2, and give that bell a gentle ding to make sure you're told when our next video goes live. Thanks on behalf of the entire crew go out to everyone who makes TE possible, and this does include everyone who supports us on Patreon and YouTube, as well as those of you who just watch the video from start to finish including the ads, and comment and share on it. We know that if you are a supporter of the channel, it doesn't really matter how much you support the channel, but rather that you support the channel, because we've got data that suggests engaged audience members are loyal audience members. So thank you. If you are a supporter at the charged up level, you'll see your name right here on my right hand side. And if your name isn't there yet, please forgive us. We have been out of the office and we render those lists about once or twice a month. So sometimes it can take a couple of weeks for your name to appear if you've just signed up through YouTube or through Patreon. Thanks to our self-driving tier supporters. They are Chris Maxwell, Pedro Mura Pinheiro, Patrick Boyarsky, Bennett Elder, Brian Newton, Dave Kitchen, Michael Goad, Ricky Leon, Andrew Martin, Guido Drahota, Brophy Wolf, Tesla in the Gong, Gordon C, Stephen O'Donoghue, Carl Hodgson, Anthony Coates, Regine Fellows, Dan Blair, Jim Burness, Chris Centaur, Chris and Michael Johnson, Peter Dillinger and Denny Hyde. And super out of this world thanks to our Starman level supporters: Anonymous Freak, Marcel Ward, Reggie Watts, Rory Litwin, Joe Bresney, Reed R, JP Fagerback, Russ, Will Grayland, Matthew Drobnak, Blue Sassalo, Kevin Barrowbridge, John Lyons, Andrew Glenn, Paul Conway, Laura Reynolds, Ellery Hansley, and Ian. If you would like to be part of that super amazing list, you can hit the join button on YouTube, or you can follow Patreon through the link below. Or indeed, you can show us your support through Ko-fi or by buying something from our cool swag store, like this Tesla t-shirt that I'm wearing right now. And if you're unable to support us financially, please know that just watching and interacting with the video really does make a massive difference to how our videos perform. So thanks for joining me, and as always, keep evolving.